Would you like to put the caterpillar or green?
Caterpillar. Right about the time he was 2.5, it just, I mean, it was like the light went out. It was like his emotional switch just got turned off.
Track 4.
That was, I thought, what her future was going to look like. She would never be able to engage with people. She would never be able to develop relationships. We would never be able to develop a connection with her. She may not be able to be independent as an adult. And so it just shattered all my dreams for her.
Pointy.
Pointy fin.
You know, when you have a kiddo with special needs, you just expect that things are going to be easy. You know, it's pretty evident that he's not learning the way he should, or, I mean, you know that it's going to be harder for him, but you don't think you're going to have to fight with grown-ups to get what he needs.
Learning your child has autism can be scary, frustrating, and it can feel like you have to fight against the system every step of the way. Tonight on a Q13 News special report, Washington families are showing us what living with autism is like, in their own words, their struggles, their concerns, but most of all, the way they're fighting for the same thing every parent wants, to make sure their kids get the opportunities they deserve. To understand that, we need to understand what autism is. You might have heard that it's a spectrum. Every case of autism is unique. While most share common symptoms like difficulties communicating and in social situations, the extent to which people on the spectrum display those symptoms varies. Take Michael Tolson from the Seattle area. He only started painting when he and his partner picked up a brush on a whim.
So here we are, two guys going through life thinking everything is just the way it should be, and we start to paint. And the first paintings come out, and they're great. I mean, not good, great. Then we started getting in galleries. Then they started to sell. My third painting I ever did sold for $4,100.
Michael is an autistic savant, a person with autism who has extraordinary skills. And now, just 5 years after he started painting, he's an internationally renowned artist running a school for kids with autism in Mexico. Michael always felt out of step communicating with people, but like many older people with autism, went almost his entire life without being diagnosed. He has what doctors used to call Asperger's. Now it's referred to as level 1 on the spectrum, the category with the most mild symptoms.
At this time, we'd like to welcome our first class cabin passengers.
But for some people with autism, things that seem routine to us can take a lot of practice to get used to. They may be on a real plane, but it's not going anywhere. Today, at least.
Hi. We're going to get to about 100 miles an hour, and then we're going to stop.
This is a dry run put on at SeaTac Airport by Wings for Autism.
What do they have to do every day?
Well, they come to work every day. So they'd have to come through the security every day because they work here.
That's Josh and his brother Kevin. They're simulating what it'll be like going through the airport when they take a real planned trip to Disneyland. The hope is next time it won't be as overwhelming.
The train is arriving.
It was fun. I like this trip.
We still don't know what causes autism. What we do know is the number of people diagnosed is skyrocketing. New CDC data shows 1 out of every 59 kids is living on the spectrum. But for families dealing with autism, one of the biggest struggles can be getting that diagnosis in the first place.
Where did it go?
This is Aurelia Drake.
Whoa.
Get it.
I've got it.
She's 6 years old.
This is my favorite offer.
Loves Roald Dahl books.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And math comes easy to her.
Subtract 4 is...
She also is living on the autism spectrum.
4.
Aurelia is Brian and Lucine Drake's first of 4 children.
We have enough!
So they didn't have anyone to compare her to when she was a baby. But they had a hunch something was different around the time she turned 1.
I wasn't able to connect with her the way I expected to connect with my child.
Aurelia wasn't interested in toys. She didn't speak, respond to her name, or look anyone in the eye.
I remember looking it up and questioning people around me if they saw what I saw. And most people didn't. I asked my mother, because she had 2 kids, she had a bunch of grandchildren, she worked in daycare for 10 years, and I thought maybe she would have an idea. And her response was, nope, she's exactly like you when you were a kid. And so I thought, well, then she's fine.
I'm completely in the green zone.
Aurelia went to her checkups. Her doctor said she was developing normally. But looking back, the Drakes say red flags were missed.
She met all of her pediatric milestones, but I think what they were missing is how she met those milestones. And I think if we looked back, if we had recognized the fact that she wasn't able to manage eye contact, and if we asked her to, she really struggled. That was really uncomfortable for her. I think there's whatever evaluation pediatricians use right now is insufficient to find these children.
When Aurelia was 3 years old, her preschool teacher noticed something too. That's the moment the Drakes decided it was time to go to a specialist. Aurelia got her first diagnosis, sensory processing disorder, something common in people with autism.
I don't know much, but it's something to do with my ears. It's got everything that's talked gets a little louder, and it sometimes hurts my ears a little, like my sister's. Somebody has to jam my ears like this.
But getting a diagnosis of autism wouldn't be so easy.
It became my hyper-focus to find the right place.
The Drakes made call after call after call, but each specialist had a wait list of a few months to a couple years long. Still, Lucine continued to call over and over again.
And I scheduled actually with every single agency, which meant a 30-page or more application for every single one. So that became my full-time job, was pursuing this.
Lucine still had the mountains of paperwork to prove it. Eventually, the Drakes got in after waiting 5 months.
That's actually really good. That's much better than a lot of stories I've heard.
It shouldn't be this hard, and it shouldn't take that long.
It's one of the most frustrating things for parents. That's 5 months their kids aren't getting early intervention therapy. Experts say can stop some of the most difficult effects of autism. Eventually, the Drakes did get their diagnosis, Asperger's. It was a moment of fear for a family who didn't know much about autism.
It destroyed me, because the only thing I knew about autism when we got her diagnosis was the movie Rain Man.
The months following the diagnosis were a dark time for the family. They avoided going to the grocery store because they didn't know if Aurelia might have a meltdown. And a lot of things that seemed simple to them were difficult for her.
We would teach her a script for how to say, hi, how are you? But then she wouldn't know how to respond if it was going to turn into a conversation.
Things did get better after she was able to get the help she needed. Eventually, Lucine started to feel that connection with Aurelia she knew she was missing. And then something incredible happened.
After her diagnosis, that first year of therapy, I revisited that statement by my mother that her behavior was the same as mine when I was a child. And I decided to find out for myself and got an evaluation and found out that I'm also on the spectrum. What I thought was just one of the worst moments in my life, to feel like I'll never have a connection with my child. She's actually the one I connect with. I realized that those parts of me that are autistic have always been the parts of myself that I love the most. And I could see that in her too. And I'm proud of being autistic. And I wanted her to feel that too. I didn't want her.
Because Aurelia's brain is wired differently, she is capable of amazing things. She started reading novels when she was 4. Now she can read one in about an hour. It's that ability to focus and her incredible intelligence that her parents now call her superpower.
I'm so proud of Aurelia and her courage and her spirit. I wouldn't have her any other way. She's perfect just the way that she is.
No. I'm just perfect.
Yep.
But getting a diagnosis is only the first step. Coming up, the struggle parents face getting the education their kids with autism deserve in a special education system that's underfunded by tens of millions of dollars. From the moment kids with disabilities are born until they turn 21, they're eligible for free special education in Washington state.
Jack, you want to help him line it up?
That is the case for Carter, who, among other things, was diagnosed with autism.
Found one. Nope.
There's lots of mornings where I'm dressing him and he's hitting me. And then there's other mornings where he comes in and wakes me up at 4 and he's completely dressed. Mom, I'm all dressed.
But one of the most challenging things has been dealing with the education system, both for him and for his mom, Catherine.
Can I show you guys something? So this is my book of my child.
Inside that book, you'll find Carter's diagnosis, medical records, and individual education plans, or IEPs. Those are agreements between the teachers, school district, and the parent on the way they'll be taught. It covers everything from the food they'll eat to what kinds of math they'll learn.
So you know how you get a normal report card? Yeah. So not only does he get a normal report card, but he gets this lovely thing, which is all of his goals. It's 6 sheets of paper that they go through each one of his IEP goals and where he is, what he's doing, and they have to do this every time they give a report card.
Sometimes the biggest issue parents face is struggling through the bureaucracy.
In a perfect world, what I would want is for us not to have to fight. Because it feels like every IEP meeting and every conference and everything we have to do with the school is confrontational. We don't want to be confrontational. We just want to get what our kids need.
Those fights can take shape in strange ways. In Carter's IEP, it says he needs a microwave because of his dietary issues. But for the first 6 weeks, his school in Tacoma wouldn't let him have one. They said they were worried Carter might burn himself. Catherine said she'd even be willing to buy the microwave, but the school wouldn't budge.
This isn't just a privileged mom. You know, this is an actual medical need my child will not eat.
For 4 straight weeks, Carter only had one food at school: peanut butter sandwiches. By week 5, he stopped eating altogether. That's when it turned into a legal battle.
They had all of his medical records, including letters from the doctor and letters from the speech therapist at Children's, saying this is a medical need, you know, and that's what it took. It had to go to the lawyers. Like, why did I have to fight that hard just to get my kid his food?
After years of dealing with issues like this, Catherine started the Federal Way Special Education PTA, joining similar organizations in the biggest districts across the state. Catherine says a lot of the problem is a disconnect between teachers and administrators.
When I have teachers coming to me as a PTA leader saying, we need to file a grievance because this is going on, and please don't use our names, and please don't do this, and, you know, can you help us, you know, get help for this issue? There's a real big problem. And they're scared to lose jobs and the whole 9 yards.
At the root of the problem, money. And a recent court decision could mean that won't be changing anytime soon. It all goes back to the McCleary decision in 2012. The Washington Supreme Court ruled 7-0. The state was acting unconstitutionally by not properly funding public education. But for a long time, nothing changed.
This year in January, we said, come up with a plan. That didn't happen. Now we're saying, come up with a plan, and you say, wait, we need more time. It's been said that insanity is defined as, you know, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Just in the last 2 years, the state has agreed to pay more money. In exchange, the court ruled the state was in compliance with McCleary. But special education got left behind.
We're underfunded, along with the rest of the state, for special education.
JoLynn Burge manages the budget for Seattle Public Schools, Washington's biggest district. And just like Catherine, she has a big book. Hers shows that in the 2018-2019 school year, the district will be $70 million short of fully funding special education. That means Seattle will have to make it up with its local levy dollars. The district needs 18 new special education teachers right now just to keep up. And when districts don't have enough qualified people, it can lead to real problems.
You know, what the scariest thing is right now is the emergency sub situation in this state. You have people that don't have teaching degrees, like at all. They've got a degree in biology or English or whatever, and they're able to start teaching special ed classes. No special ed experience. Do you think that's Lightning McQueen?
Is this good?
Yeah, that's perfect, bud.
Despite all of this, Catherine knows Washington is better than a lot of other places when it comes to special education. And Carter helps make it easier.
I got a good kid. I got a really, really good kid who works so hard and wants to learn.
Here's the puzzle, Mom.
Good job, bud.
Wait, look at the puzzle.
But what happens when kids with autism become adults with autism?
There's so much focus on the early intervention that it just stops when they become adults.
The struggles of aging out of the system. From early intervention to special education, when it comes to autism, the focus is on kids. But after people with autism turn 21, all the services they were receiving are cut off. They're on their own. And for a parent, that can feel like falling off a cliff.
It just stops when they become adults. They age out of the system, and then there's almost nothing other than adult daycare.
That's Bob Groves. His 26-year-old son is living on the spectrum.
This is Chris.
Hello.
Hi, Chris. I'm Marnie.
This is
Hello,
Marnie.
Nice to meet you.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am fine.
Like many other people with autism, Chris still lives at home, but he wants more.
That's enough.
It's not that he doesn't want to be around the rest of us. He doesn't want to be dependent on us for everything. You know, the less dependent he is, the more he's a grown-up, a man. You know, which is kind of where he wants to be. He doesn't just want to be a big kid. And he wants to be a whole person.
According to the latest data in Washington state, 27% of special education students enroll in higher education within 1 year of leaving high school. 16% are competitively employed, and 15% are in a training program or employed in some other form. That leaves about 1 out of every 3 adults with autism on their own and without a job just 1 year after losing services. That can be frustrating for people like Chris, who are actually eager to work.
He comes to me at least once a week and tells me he wants a job.
What does he want to do?
He would love to work at a place where he could, you know, restock the shelves with videotapes because he's fascinated with videotapes. You know, unfortunately, there aren't a whole lot of places that do that anymore, but he's good at organizing things.
Last one. 50. Let's go.
Luckily, there are people stepping in to fill the void, like the Alyssa Burnett Center in Bothell.
So we are a recreational center for adults with developmental disabilities. We're here just to give students an opportunity to have social skills practice and to be in the community, making friends, being around peers.
While they don't teach job skills, they do offer 12-week classes teaching the skills people with disabilities need to live independently. It was founded in 2014 by Charles and Barbara Burnett. Their daughter, Alyssa, the center's namesake, still attends classes there to this day, as do more than 100 other students with developmental disabilities. And at the Alyssa Burnett Center, no one ever ages out.
They start here at age 18, but then there's no upper cutoff age. And that allows the adults to have this safety of there's an opportunity for the rest of your life to have fun, to make friends, to be learning things, because we learn forever.
What's on our recipe? What's next?
Club soda.
Good job.
Today, Chris is learning how to cook, a skill that could eventually help him achieve his goal of living on his own.
That good?
Chris agreed to answer a few of my questions and ask me a few of his own.
What did you cook?
Scrambled eggs. Marty, what's your favorite meal?
I like tacos. What do you like? Chris, what do you like?
Focus.
What do you like? What do you like? This pizza.
Pizza? Cheese pizza?
Cheese pizza.
Chris also volunteers at St. Vincent de Paul.
Vincent de Paul.
Vincent de Paul? And what do you do at Vincent de Paul?
Put the books away.
Do you like that?
Yes.
Yes. Do you meet friends there?
Meet friends.
But he wants to be able to support himself doing that work one day. And he's trying hard to get there, building up his life and his communication skills, even when it's difficult.
We ask a lot of questions.
We don't really like questions.
Do I ask too many questions?
Too many questions?
Too many questions.
I know. I get that a lot.
A lot.
Yes, a lot of questions I ask. Thank you for answering my questions.
And organizations in Washington are working to make sure he has those opportunities.
This is Spencer. Spencer has autism. He is nonverbal, and yeah, he's my brother.
He's also a hard worker. Just ask his boss, Liz Calori, who owns Pizza Bank in Kirkland.
Can't dismiss the value of work.
Spencer started at Pizza Bank in high school thanks to a local organization called Provale. They find jobs for people with disabilities, and then they pay for job coaches to stick around and make sure those employees succeed.
They're come in and do jobs that are just really critical to the restaurant and operation, and they do their jobs well. And there's moments when they need some direction and guidance, and that's where that Provale employee is really important. I think that's what makes it work for us.
More than 300 businesses have signed up to take on Provale employees. Some employees end up staying in their jobs for decades. The program is looking to expand, but it needs funding and more businesses to take part. Something Provale's president, Michael Hatzenbeller, says comes down to changing perceptions.
We tend to assume that there's a lot that people with disabilities can't do, and we get really focused on what they can't do. I think if we can shift our focus to what they can do and how they can contribute, how they can connect and be a part of our community, we're going to open up doors not only for them, but for all of us.
It's a lesson Liz has already learned from her time with Spencer.
They're just like us, they like to get a paycheck and do a good job, and super friendly and like the positive feedback.
Spencer's favorite food is pizza, and it's so great that he's working at a pizzeria, but also working here has really given him a sense of responsibility as a person. Autism or any developmental disability doesn't define who they are. That disability doesn't define them. It's the things that he likes, the things that he does that really define who he is.
Pizza, bad. Good.
Good, you did a good job?
Yes.
Do you like your job?
Yes.
The issues we've talked about touch every part of our state and country, and the need to address them is getting even more dire. During the 80s and 90s, the best estimates were that less than 1 out of every 1,000 kids had autism. In 2000, that number jumped to 1 in every 150 kids. In 2010, it jumped again to 1 out of every 68 kids. And in the time between when we started putting this special together and when we aired it, that number went up to 1 in every 59 kids. We don't know why those numbers are increasing. Doctors are getting better at diagnosing it. Researchers think it could also be several things, from parents having kids later in life to more premature babies surviving. What is clear is we can and must do better. We need to be doing more both earlier and later in life. But we also need to understand autism better and embrace people on the spectrum for who they are, incredible people who just happen to think a little differently. When 1 in every 59 kids are diagnosed, it's not someone else's responsibility, it's all of ours.